Sean.
Marco.
We are here to deliver a message from the RSA conference team.
It's an important message from our friends. RSA Conference 2025, just around the corner, where insights drive action, solutions emerge, and community connections spark innovation. You'll be there. I'll be there. We invite everybody else to be there April 28th through May 1st. You can secure your spot at rsaconference.com/ITSPMAG25. That's ITSPMAG25. See you all there.
I'll be there. See you there.
Marco.
Sean.
It's my favorite time of the day.
Yeah, pizza time. Coffee.
Oh, always pizza. It's a little early for pizza, even here in. Well, it's never too early for pizza. What am I trying to say?
Come on, you're gonna tell me there is an actual time in New York for
know.
pizza? Come on,
I know.
It's a 24/7 there.
No, it's time for a story, and what I like about this time is we get to meet new people and hear about the passion they have for the solutions they bring to market to help people and organizations better protect themselves. And these brand stories are designed to do just that. And we have Greg and John on from White Knight Labs. Good to see you guys.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Yeah, indeed a good opportunity to learn something new. And, for a company, as for me coming from branding, the why, right? Why a company does what it does, why people do what they do, what's their vision and their mission. It's always at the core of what could eventually be hopefully the success of a company, and stay that way, right? Staying still human and motivated and passionate. So looking forward to hearing this story.
Creates things you don't even expect.
Yeah.
Side effects that are fantastic for individuals and businesses. So let's I think we're going to start today with a bit about the two folks on the line who have been involved in this space for quite some time. I don't know who wants to go first.
John
Greg?
just volunteered.
John did.
Yeah, I guess I'm going first. All right, I'll give my background and I'll talk about a little bit about the company. Then Greg, feel free to jump in like normal, man, and we'll go from there. So so John Stigerwalt here, one of the original founders of White Knight Labs. So I have a pretty interesting, unique background. Started hacking at 17, but we all can't go be a hacker for a major company at 17 years old. 2010, 2009 era. Pen testing was just taking off in its roots, right? So I did a little bit of stint in college, information security and insurance, and learned how to write an email, learned how to send a memo. Didn't learn anything about hacking. Didn't really take me anywhere. Learned that college or your degrees in our field are pretty worthless. And that's unfortunate, for penetration testing. So I started the bottom barrel. I went and worked for an IT help desk tech shop for a small bank. And I learned a lot. I learned how to manage Active Directory, learned how to, work in a corporate environment, worked how to, work for someone else, for a boss, and realized, hey, this is kind of what I want to do. I'm going to go up the ranks and I'm going to grow. So got exposed to servers, every kind of server you can possibly imagine. Dell's, HP, Server Rack, and ServerMonkey. Became a junior sysadmin. Then became a regular sysadmin. Started managing more of Active Directory, firewalls, doing some security stuff. And I got really involved in security and became a security lead. That's kind of where my security career kind of really started taking off fast. It was just like a sponge, man, just picking it up left and right, They shipped me out to North Carolina to work with Palo Alto directly in firewalls. I was one of the original Trap customers. So like before Cortex was branded. So I got exposed to the original kernel driver for Cortex. Super cool stuff. So, and I was studying for my OSCP. Became a CISO then. I actually went to become a CISO. Controlled 9 locations across the world, 2 in India, the rest of the world in the States for a pretty good sized bank. And all I did was compliance.
You asked me every second of it.
If you ask me any compliance question, I got you. I got you FedRAMP. I got you SOC 2 Type 2. I got you PCI, NIST, ISO. I worked with the VA for quite a bit as well. Got burned out pretty fast. I'll tell you what, I'm pretty good. I can write a lot of policy procedures, SOPs. I got your plans all day. Took a pay cut, became a pen tester. At that point, I had my OSCP, my OSCE. I've had a bunch of other certs on my belt. I did 2 years assembly at that same time. So I was writing shell code, looking at the Windows 7 and 10, at the time Windows 7 and 10 kernel, because we were switching migrating at the point. and took a pay cut and went to start working for VDA Labs. Leveled up pretty fast right there. I was already a senior pretty much as I started, and did a lot of pen testing. VDA Labs is a very small shop out of Grand Rapids. I originally worked for Dr. Jared DeMont, one of the original founders of the company. The hands have changed now, and things have happened with that company, so that would make that company a little bit different today. So at that point there, I met Greg. We became good friends and good buddies. We partied, had a good time. Did jobs together, did physical operations together, a lot of different things. I mean, did work for Microsoft. We did a lot of AV EDR bypasses, red teams, internals, externals, you name it, guys. It was such a unique shop that just did a variety of work across everything, all the way from hardware, to mobile API. I decided to leave VDA Labs, and I stayed on. I still contracted them for years, but actually I went to F-Secure. And that's kind of where my red team career kind of took off to the next level. I ran the US red team, the internal pen test side, and I worked hand in hand with the EU team as well. F-Secure is pretty different than now called WithSecure. They were a Fortune 500 company, a very unique company, and they had a very small marketing team. We were a 16-man team, and everything was word of mouth. And they only worked Fortune 500s and above. It was big time jobs. We're talking 100,000 endpoints or more per every network we touched. It was just absolute insanity. I got a chance to test 2 of the Fortune 10s across the world in 2019 and 2020, running with the EU and the US red team. Extremely successful on the red teams. At that point, WKL was kind of already started, and I decided, what, we can do this better. From all of our previous experience with F-Secure, VDA, and all the other consulting shops we worked with, we decided to kind of take all the goods and bads and kind of combine them into what Labs is today. And it's a very unique consulting company that I would say we're not a pen test puppy mill. We really strive for that gold standard of testing, right? Senior and principal engineers only. We're a team of 37 today. So pretty well. We touch all areas of offensive security. You name it, we do it. So we're not an IR shop. We're not a SOC compliance shop. We don't do any compliance work. We have a lot of good partners for that, a lot of that work as well. We're strictly right now pretty much penetration testing and training as well. So, Mr. Hatcher. Oh, go ahead. Ask me a question.
I want to focus something here before Greg jumps in, because I mean we can laugh at compliance, but I'm wondering how that, in connection with your deep understanding of networking and obviously your coding skills and your thinking of things from an attacker's perspective with the red teaming and whatnot, how all those come together to give you a unique perspective of what needs to be done for the business. Because if the compliance, we can laugh, but it does ultimately connect that stuff back to the business in some sense, but having all the other elements are necessary as well. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So very good question. I love that. That's good. So I'll give you 2 things. When I walk into a client network today, I'm talking to the CISO or the IT manager, I've sat in their same shoes. I know exactly what it feels like to have me on the other side knocking down their doors, or if they're going through an IR case or something's happened, or asking questions like, "Hey, I don't have people to remediate this." I understand the policies. When we make a recommendation, I know that they may not be able to deploy that, may not have funds, budget. They're going to try to find some free solution. Something's going to happen. So I've sat in their shoes exactly. So I think that's made me really well-rounded. It's also made me a really great tester. I know how companies work. I know how to set file shares. I've managed Active Directory for years. I know exactly the pain points that everybody's going to go through, whether it's server racking, VLAN, it could be anything. It doesn't really matter. So I think it's made me very well-rounded. Now, when we hire folks, I do look, and I love the CISO backgrounds. I think they make some of the best penetrators ever. If you sit on the blue team side, if you've managed firewalls, AD, sat in the shoes of a CISO, and you're going to become a pen tester, you're so well-rounded, and you have such a very broad understanding of how the company works inside. And it's like it allows us to exploit business logic flaws outside of just the regular pen testing. So very unique perspective.
Definitely. Cool. I want to hear Greg's perspective.
I know.
And Greg.
Yeah.
Come on, Greg. So jump in.
We laugh at compliance sometimes, but it has its place, right? So there needs to be a minimum baseline for security across the cloud and on-premise networks. HIPAA is important. like as much as we want to laugh at it, like the three pillars, like technical safeguards, administrative safeguards, and physical, it is important. Like I don't want my protected health information out there. I'm kind of glad that there's this, minimum baseline that hospitals and healthcare organizations have to meet, and if they don't, there are penalties that are monetary. So.
Sounds like
And
HIPAA paid you say that, huh? You working for HIPAA today?
Yeah.
Paid for by HIPAA today. Wow,
Yeah.
way to promote HIPAA.
So Greg, because I jumped in, I didn't give you a chance to get your background.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if you can kind of help shape for us
Sure.
how
Yeah,
you
tell us
think
your mushy
this
background.
experience can.
Oh, it's mushy. So I found tech a bit later in life than John did. So my background, graduated from Grand Valley State University in 2009, like liberal arts degree. I was actually an orchestral musician in college, and I played rugby, and I did political science. So like nothing super technical. After that, I went right into Army Special Operations. So I did the 2-year pipeline to become a Green Beret off the street. The program is actually called the 18 X-ray program. So you go through the 2-year Special Forces qualification course, which consists of like small unit tactics, where you're just like outside starving in the woods, running ambushes and reconnaissance over and over again, like multiple days without sleeping and eating. There's language school in there, so I did 6 months of Modern Standard Arabic. There's SEER school. There's my actual MOS, which is communications, and my MOS, which is communications 18 Echo, that kind of led me down the technical path. So the 18 Echo's role on a special forces team is to handle all the routing, switching, NIPR, SIPR, VoIP configurations, cryptography, all the vehicle comms when we're overseas. So I was the guy. I finally get to my team in 2012, and I'm the junior Echo on the team. There's 2 of every MOS on a 12-man ODA. ODA stands for Operational Detachment Alpha, and my senior, he just threw me in the fire. He's like, "Hey, we're going to the range. Go configure the radio. And by the way, I'm not helping you." So I basically learned by doing over and over again. So if we're in Syria or Afghanistan and some piece of tech is broken or gets dropped off, I'm the guy that has to make it work. And typically there's no manual. So definitely learning by doing and not by reading about it in a book, which directly like kind of fed into offensive cyber when I got out in 2017. So I get out in 2017 after doing 4 combat deployments over 7 years. My first daughter is born the same week I transitioned out of the military, so that was awesome. I was a stay-at-home dad for a bit, 9 months, and during that time, babies sleep a lot. I'm not sure if you guys know that. So I was labbing, 5-6 hours a day in my kitchen, just like taking care of my kid while my wife was working. I did the whole SANS Vet Success program. So SANS will actually let you apply for the SANS Vet Success program, and they pay for you to get 3 certs, which is like over $20K because SANS certifications are insanely expensive. And the year after that, I started working at VDA Labs. I had lunch with Dr. Jared DeMott, as John already mentioned, and he gave me a shot. I came in as a junior pen tester at VDA, and Jared accepted a lot of projects that we had to figure out on the ground how to get through them. So it was
no manual.
yeah, iOS,
No
Android,
manual.
mobile testing. You're doing physicals. Like there was some kernel stuff we did with Microsoft. We did some of the original EDR testing for Cylance, trying to bypass it. So we got our hands into a bunch of different tech. So 2020 rolls around. John had left the year prior and went over to F-Secure. So I left and went over to 6th Gen as a federal contractor. And while at 6th Gen, I was doing a ton of traveling all around the United States with my 3-man red team because we were contracted for CISA. Have you guys heard the NCATS assessments? Basically, if you run like a government municipality, you can apply to CISA to get a free penetration test. The waiting list is quite long. It's like 18 months, but it's free. It's a free service that CISA offers. Whether or not that service is going to be around here in the next couple of weeks, it remains to be seen. CISA funding is being cut as we speak. So, and then also while at 6th Gen, I did some contracting with the NSA. So lots of travel, like just leading the team, got my hands into a lot of different tech over there, learned how squishy America's critical infrastructure was, which was very eye-opening. Things like Eternal Blue were still on the internal networks. And then around, what year was that? 2021, I basically joined forces with John over at WPL, and we've been going straight up ever since. So I wanted to bring a lot of the culture from Army Special Operations into WKL. So on an ODA, a Special Forces ODA, which is a 12-man team, there's everyone specializes in a different skill set. So my specialty was communications, but there's also a medic. There's also a weapons specialist called an 18 Bravo. There's there's all kinds of stuff. But anyways, everyone goes very deep in their field, and there's very little overlap. Like I can stop bleeding. That's where the extent of my medical training ends. But they can do almost open heart surgery in the field if someone gets shot. So how does that apply directly into offensive security and the culture at WKL is, our embedded team is very small and they only do embedded penetration testing. Our red team is small, but they all work together as a cohesive unit, and they're doing loader development, developing new initial access payloads and ways to pivot into internal networks from the external. And that's all they do. So we wanted to get away from this paradigm where engineers are expected to be able to do every single thing, like from mobile testing to internal, external, cloud testing across AWS, GCP, and Azure, and be really good at it, because that's impossible. There's so many different areas to dive deep in offensive cyber. We like to find people that are very good at their one thing, whether it be like iOS, mobile app testing, Android, physical access operations. We had a SkillBridge intern recently, Todd Krebsbach, that developed like a whole new way to clone badges at WKL. So that's kind of the value that Army Special Operations folks bring to the company.
So I'm curious. I love all of this. It's super, super interesting. And it makes me think, because you talk about not having a plan. There's no manual. Well, not having plans, not the right way. No manual to this. Rooted in deep experience, rooted in deep understanding of how things work. How does that guide you when you engage with a customer? How I guess what I'm looking for is, how does the scope come out? How does the team get defined? I'm really trying to understand, because it sounds like you tailor an engagement based on what the business needs, what the customer is asking for, what you can offer, what the threats are, right? All this stuff comes together. How does that come?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's no cookie cutter packages for our clients. It's not like you get package 1, 2, or 3. Everything is 100% customized to what the client needs, because every business has its own specific risks, right? So whether they're a healthcare organization or they're a fintech startup out of New York City, like their threat profile is very different. The number of endpoints and external attack surface is going to be different. Their insider threat assessment risk profile is different. It's all customized. So when we scope engagements, one of my first questions is, how does your business make money? Because if we can understand how the business makes money, we know what a threat actor is going to go after. Like if it's a bank, it's kind of obvious, right? We want to pivot it into the internal network and try to wire money to an account that we control. So if it's a red team engagement, scoping those objectives becomes really easy, right? So we want to gain initial access from the external, compromise an account, and then move money. Like that's the whole red team engagement. Sometimes that includes a physical access operation where we'll go on site using tools like the underdoor tool or double door tool. We'll clone badges, impersonate vendors or employees, anything to accomplish the objective. Whereas a penetration test is more of a smash and grab. We're being loud in the network. We're running tools like Nmap, vulnerability scanners. We're like intercepting traffic, doing like man in the middle attacks, like using LLM tools like Responder. So yeah, all that to be said, it's very custom, and each engagement is tailored to the client.
So I'm always fascinated, because it's kind of my style to, like, if there is a manual, I'd rather not touch it and figure out myself what I get, like technical stuff or whatever. Then if I need it, I'll get to the manual. So I really like the idea. But also, especially in this field where things change constantly, cybersecurity, going by a manual, going by a package is not going to be beneficial for clients. That's for sure. But I'm wondering, John, with the experience that you had, how do you present this kind of approach to customer, where maybe they're a little bit more conservative in their approach, that maybe they want to know what you're about to do, and how do you sell this approach to them?
Great question. Yep. So we're pretty open about what we do, right? So like we do have some in-house tooling, some things that are custom to us, right? But we're not reinventing the wheel here, right? So like every time we always run our calls over Zoom or whatever they want the client does, right? We're fully open about what we're going to do. Our external pen testing is very unique to what we do. There's a few other consulting shops go above and beyond like we do. I'm not gonna call it our competitors, but there's only a few shops. Last time I checked, I think there was 13,000 registered, pen test shops across America in the last whatever 3 or 4 years, right? 13,000 shops. Today, I think I can only count 50, maybe less than that go above and beyond like we do with our competitive pricing and our senior or principal level approaching. So when it comes to a client, we would explain what we're going to do. Excuse me. Some of the tools that we run, methodologies or approaches, like we run on an 80/20 methodology. So we're 20% automated, such as port scanning, vulnerability scanning, kind of OSINT information gathering, things around those lines. And then the rest is manual hacking, right? Manual things that my team will use. We call them playbooks or rule books. Basically, rules or plays that I've set for the team to use. They have to do X, Y, and Z. And then once those things are done, they can go on a free roam. It's their job to figure out what's after that. But we have certain checks and policies we have to do as a pen tester, such as, hey, we have to make sure, SMB is not exposed outside. Okay, great. We've done that. Let's move on to the next one. The next one. Same thing happens for web application testing. Same thing for internal, right? First thing to get DA. So we explain all these things to the customers. We obviously have been around for a while, so we know downtime, man in the middle, responder. So everything has certain after hours, but very custom rules of engagement that we forward over to the clients. They're very aware of what we are doing, so we're very open with them and explain to them as best as possible. Now, caveat. Some clients just say, hey, listen, I just want the check the box pen test. Sure, no problem. I will give you the most basic external, internal pen test. I'll ship you a NUC or I'll give you a VM. It's okay. They don't care. They said, just don't take us down. No problem. We're still going to give them a damn good test. But they just don't want to know. Most think about it, most people finding pen test data are IT managers, maybe CISOs, probably not CTOs, CIOs, and then they take it up to the board of directors or they take it up to the executive team and they present, here's 3 different quotes we have. As long as we get our name in the hat, I'm happy. It's mostly the IT managers or the IT team that want to know what we're doing, and we explain it in full depth. If it takes 3 calls, so be it. We're there.
Anything you want to add there, Greg, from your experience there?
Yeah, he covered it really well. Our scope engagement, sometimes people will just reach out to us like cold inbound lead. We have automation in place for that. I would say that 90% of our engagements come from partnerships, though. We have tons of partnerships for other IT service providers where they want to bring in WKL because they know that we are the tip of the spear, and we charge a very normal day rate as opposed to like a crazy day rate. I'm not going to mention like competitors, but there are some shops out there that really drag their clients over the coals, and we'll never do that.
Yep.
So I want to touch on some of the actual pen test because it's no surprise, I would think, that you do network pen testing.
We do network pen testing.
Right? But also, mobile apps, web apps,
everything, guys. You guys name it, we probably do it.
Yeah. I would say that half of our work is application security. Yep. So mobile, web app, and API.
Interesting, and obviously when we look at there's applications, the network, there's the communications. Back to your point, Greg. How about data storage? Do you get involved much with looking at policies and configurations, some of the logic stuff, or is it more?
We do get pulled into just like Cloudflare configuration reviews. For example, can I just like go around Cloudflare and hit the IP of your origin server behind Cloudflare because it's just misconfigured? That's kind of a worst case scenario, right? Like someone pays for this product and it's not even configured correctly, so it's not doing anything. We've done similar engagements against like Global Scale, which is an enhanced file transfer system, and then ShareFile as well.
So are there any, I'm sure you've seen it all, but are there any areas where organizations, maybe it's a common area that you come across a lot, that maybe companies should consider, areas where they think they are tight and locked down, and
we got a good one.
You routinely see this space open all the time, or
Sean, you wouldn't believe how many times a client has told me that because they're in Azure or because they're in GCP, they're secure. Like CISOs and VPs, the C-suite, they think that the cloud is inherently insecure. that's like saying Active Directory is secure because Microsoft made it. Like Microsoft makes things intentionally insecure, so you have to buy additional packages to secure products. The same can be said for GCP and AWS. So you really need someone that knows how to harden that attack surface in the cloud to make sure that you're at least like doing the sys benchmark level ones.
Now, I want to add on something there. So we created a service probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That's been one of our most popular sellers for a long time, and it pairs very easily with any of our service offerings. It's one of my most absolute favorites. And I haven't found anybody that's really offering the same thing we do here. We have a very unique, like, tip of the spear service, and it's called our ransom simulation. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, we've done ransom simulation. Hold on. You haven't done WKL ransom simulation. We're very different. We take it to the most extreme level you possibly can. We will come in, we will run a Cobalt Strike beacon. We have bypasses sitting on the shelf for every single AV EDR today. You name it, we got it. I don't care what it is. I will bypass it 100%. That is exactly what our team does. We have a research and development team that will build bypasses on the fly 100%. Our charge for an average ransom simulation, $5K, easy. 3 days in, we're out, report, boom, you failed. 99.9% of all clients fail our ransom simulations. I think there's only been one client that's actually passed in the last whatever amount of time. And we've done a lot. We do a lot of ransom simulations. So what does that mean for us? We'll do a C2 beacon. We test inside and outside network traffic leaving over HTTPS. We can test DNS as well. Once we establish a beacon on their most secure endpoint, I say, hey, give me an endpoint like a new hire. I want all your AV EDR. I want your logging. I want every policy package. I'm going to create a beacon coming in through Azure. We're going to be 100% legit. We'll make it look like Microsoft's traffic coming in. We're going to bypass your web sense. We're going to bypass every topic policy and rule you have in place. I now have a beacon. I'm going to run a .NET payload. I'm going to bypass your AVDR, and I have them set up a dummy file share with whatever data. My top speed right now, if they give me a pretty good PC, I can do 80 gigs an hour of encryption. So I'll encrypt a dummy file share with whatever user they want, and then I will exfiltrate that data off the network. And most people never see it. I use a custom encryption method. I take the data off over HTTPS. No one sees a damn thing. And here's the thing. If a real ATP group or real ransomware group is going to target you, they're not going to do something that's known. My job is to show people, hey, I'm giving you a bypass. I'm giving you custom encryption. I'm giving you something that you've never seen before that a real targeted, I'm talking legit hackers would use. Like if I'm going to go black hat, I'm going to go just wipe out the planet, I'm using something you've never seen before. That's the legit stuff. So that's what our service package is. And it's an eye-opener for a lot of companies.
So that's a really low-cost service that gets our foot in the door with a lot of large clients. Mm-hmm. So we're going in, we're testing their EDR, we're testing their network security, logging and monitoring. Sometimes there's an EDR in play. If they outsource that, we're testing them to see if they're actually watching eyes on glass every endpoint on the network. And then after we zip up and encrypt everything on the files, move them off the network, we're testing the data loss prevention tool on the way out the door. So it's a good one.
Very good. So I'm going through the services here. So penetration testing, we talked about it, attack simulation, security assessment. Then you have the incident response. So when things go bad, you can still be the one on the field and take care of things. So how does that work?
We don't play as much in the incident response game because John and I, we're both getting older. We've got families. We don't want to get that call Friday. Like every IR happens at 5 p.m. on a Friday. Yeah. So I think if I was hopping on a plane to go overseas or something on a Friday, my wife would be divorcing me pretty fast.
All right.
So we do small cases, guys. Very small stuff like, hey, a server got compromised or web app. Sure, we'll handle that. It's like 3 days. We bring in our web app specialists. We have guys that do IR, but we don't do any major threat things. We have multiple partners in play. That's kind of also helped marketing the IR for them as well. So if anybody reaches out, hey, I have an IR case, we pass them right through because we get pen tests from other partners as well. So depending on what it is, we will take it. But if it's something very large and we may not have the resources to handle it, or we're not professional enough to the degree of like, hey, I have to be available 24/7, for the next 15 days, which I can't commit to that for certain members of the team.
Right. Tell me a little bit about your kind of like your partner ecosystem. So who do you work with?
Ooh, very good. So we work with a lot of different partners. Depends on what you want. So we have a partner for pretty much every possible service offering you want that we don't offer, such as compliance, SOC 2 Type 2, PCI NIST, certifications. We can get you, oh my gosh, we can get you anything you want. We're also a reseller for any AV EDRs. We also resell hardware, software. My biggest thing right now, and Greg has heard me preach about this 1,000 times. I've also preached on this many podcasts. I think software sales is the most greediest thing you could possibly do to another company, and that's just the truth. I think having markup on software sales and going back and forth, having to fight for deals nonstop, and I know that's sales. That is sales. It just feels greedy to me, you know. So what I do is I will give clients and customers dealer pricing or the best pricing they're having. Pair that with a service offering. I do it all the time. So it just, you know, at the end of the day, like I can get Palo Alto firewalls right now for $3,000. You know what the problem is? It's the licensing. That's where the 30 grand comes on top of that. That's sickening, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we've created a monster, Marco and I.
We
talk
have
about
created
that.
a monster. Yes, we have. Yep,
It's the
it's
Frankenstein.
crazy stuff.
It is a Frankenstein.
Oh, go ahead, Greg. Jump in there.
Yeah, I mean, and also with that, John and I, we won't resell any hardware or software that we haven't personally tested and have vetted. So, for instance, we're not going to go resell, I don't know, trash EDR Carbon Black, for example. We have a research partnership with Sentinel One because we believe in the product. If we've ever done a red team engagement against an EDR company and we have a really hard time against it, either with persistence or lateral movement or initial execution, we will reach out to them like, hey, like you guys did a really good job. We did bypass you eventually, but you know, can we resell your product because you guys are doing a lot of good stuff. So yeah, Sentinel One is the really big one that we resell.
Yeah. Moving over to partners, like we have Arium, which is a great IR partner, right? We have a few private partners that we're not going to disclose on this podcast that pass us pen tests, and you know we do a little bit of white labeling. We do white label for a lot of other customers and clients, right? Those will stay private with us, you know. But we partner with anybody, guys. I mean, honestly, you name it, we partner with them in some fashion or somehow. I mean, even for example, I love SpectreUps, one of my absolute favorite competitors, companies. I see them as a partnership. We work hand in hand. We offer training to them. Same thing with Optiv. I think Optiv is great as well. They have a great team, great set of guys. You know, even though there's, you know, every company goes through ups and downs, layoffs, non-layoffs. It doesn't matter. You know, I look at the red team, the pen test team. Those are people just like me and you. You know, they all needed a job. You know, they work. You know, they sing kumbaya, and you know, like they're just like us. We've all shifted around careers. You know, we can't help companies go through hardships or you know things like that. So we're willing to help anybody. It's not like you know we're biased towards other people. You know, we're pretty neutral. So it's just I don't believe in reselling products that don't work, you know, like a placebo. I just don't believe. And you know, like for example, one of the biggest ones I have is I'm not the biggest fan of CrowdStrike today. I think it is steaming pile of crap.
It goes between steaming pile of crap and hunk of junk.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we've had multiple cease and desist letters from them for bypassing their products. They treat us like we're state actors and threat actors. So it's very strange. That is one product we do not resell. I think that if you're a Fortune 500 company, you get the best of the best with Falcon, you know, and CrowdStrike. You know, if you're paying for the top services. If you're a mom pop shop paying, you know, you're paying for the same thing but a lot less because you have less endpoints. I don't think you get the same protection. There's a lot of blog posts about that. And there's a lot of information. I'll never be able to prove that, but obviously they're protecting First National Bank with the top senior, you know, executives and all those guys, 100%. But they're not protecting, you know, Papa John's down the road for me. You know, they should be.
CrowdStrike's MDR service is called Overwatch. We've had very varying levels of detection and monitoring with Overwatch. Like we've done entire like 15-day internal penetration tests, and Overwatch didn't see anything and didn't report to the client. And other times, they're eyes on glass within a couple hours of us conducting a red team engagement. So experiences vary widely.
Yeah, strange.
So one of the things I want to touch on, and I alluded to it kind of at the beginning, this idea that ultimately we're trying to run the business securely and safely, right? So you're not directly involved in the IR, you have partners involved in the IR. That's kind of one extreme. You're opening the can at the front end and exposing where things are weak, misconfigured, vulnerable, under attack, already compromised, whatever. In that middle space there, how do you help organizations then get their operations back in line with where they need to be, should be, ought to be because of regulatory compliance, whatever it is, so that they can handle an attempt at a ransom, or they can handle an insider attack, or whatever it is that you uncovered?
Yeah, that's question. Really great.
Oh, you go ahead. You want me to?
I got it. Yeah. So we were working with a fintech startup out of New York, and I got a really interesting call in the middle of the night once. It was one of the owners of the company, and they had hired a developer that they did not perform any background checking on. And it turned out that this developer was a straw man for an EPT or a crimeware group. And once the fintech company confronted this developer, they essentially just threw a smoke grenade and vanished in a puff of smoke. They were just gone. And that company had no idea what that developer had done to their CIC pipeline, their code, production code, their internal network, how many layers of persistence there were. So it's those kind of engagements that need a very like fine touch is where we'll come in and be like, okay, we're going to give you 2 engineers for 5 days. We're going to look through every line of your source code. We're going to look at your CIC pipeline, white box, basically look through every single configuration in like Jenkins or Azure DevOps and see if there's any, did they push any kind of like malicious third-party libraries, dependencies, things like that. And then we'll look through your internal network as well to see if they establish persistence somewhere. So it's engagements like that where it's like, we did a good job. We found tons of backdoors, persistence mechanisms, but then you also feel really good at the end, like you actually helped this company.
And piggybacking on that, so looking at more of the executive level. So, okay, so like, we give a report, pen test report, we give an awesome report. We have, risk rating, we have findings, we have recommendations, everything like that. There's also a very unique section that it comes from me, and it's very unique, is general things they need to do after they do the findings. So just, hey, maybe you should probably look at CS benchmarks. Maybe you should probably look at turning on Defender and turning on attack surface reduction rules. You have enterprise licensing. This is free. Why aren't you guys doing this, right? Maybe we should look at the free application whitelisting with WDAC or WDAC for Microsoft, right? AppLocker is not very good, but whatever. You can turn on AppLocker if you want. There's a lot of free things that you can do without having to spend money on a third-party tool. Because I mean, if you guys know and I know, every CISO is like, hey, I need a tool that can do X, Y, and Z. Well, in reality, you already have it. You just don't realize you have it. It's all free, 100%. I mean, honestly, you could really turn everything on. Yeah, turn everything on your group policy objects. I mean, what are we doing here? There's like, oh, it's terrible to manage. I'm like, it's really not that bad. Trust me. And once you start locking things down, it's like, man, my attack service really went down. I mean, what's the biggest one of the century for ransomware? All ransomware groups targeted local admin. So what do? We keep up with Lapse. Now we're on Lapse 2.0. Phenomenal product. It's free. 100%. You can push it across MSI package, all your GPOs. Bam. Running up a DLL inside your file share on an Active Directory. So we'll do recommendations around those lines, such as, hey, we're on a Cisco firewall. It's a very basic firewall. We have no application ID for anything leaving inside out. It's like, okay, well, maybe it's time to actually look at a Palo Alto firewall. I'm biased towards Palo Alto, guys, because that Palo Alto works. We know it works. They're a phenomenal product. There's other ones that are similar to Palo Alto, but I like using Palo Alto in my analogies because they're great stuff. Put on user ID, start looking at all the user agents, everything that's coming through, all the users, employees, and then what applications. You can start filtering and really getting granular. You can get so granular, you can say, hey, only this stream of data is going outside here and here. That's it. Boom. We've now started blocking, C2, dynamic block lists, right? Or DBLs, I think they are. You can start blocking all the newest stuff from Spamhaus. Spamhaus is pretty good. It's a good threat feed. We'll recommend things around those lines. So our reports are not just pen test reports. Yeah, fix these findings. But it's like, hey, here's some things you can do later down the road. I do CS benchmark scans all the time. I give master reports. We'll do compliance checks, hardening checks. We'll do things that like fall to the offensive arm. If they want a huge SOP and they need to redo every single policy, or say they wrote a policy not following anything, that's where I bring in a partner, right? Because I'm not going to sell them $90,000 for compliance work when I can't satisfy their requirement. There's someone's better than me, and I'm okay. I can accept that. I did not build a company to do compliance. Right. Like that's 100%.
Exactly. I think that was clear from the beginning of this conversation. As we're giving an overview of everything that you do as the first story with us, want to touch a little bit on the training part, because John, you kind of mentioned it here and there. Mm-hmm. You work with other companies, you do the training. Greg, John, who wants to jump on that?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that. So our training is unique in that there's various platforms we teach on. So we'll actually teach in person at conferences. For instance, we got 3 courses into DEF CON this year. So we'll be there in person teaching the RTOC, which is the Advanced Red Team Operations course, the ODPC, which is the Offensive Development Practitioner course, which is all about writing software and loader development to bypass EDR. And then we also got our new course, the CIC pipeline course, which is called ASCPC, Attacking and Securing CIC Pipelines. So you guys have probably heard about all the the software supply chain attacks going on. That course specifically is all about attacking and poisoning software supply chains. And we're teaching that in NorthSec next month in Montreal, Canada as well. So Ronak is flying over from India. That's his baby. So there's the in-person at conferences. We also teach remotely, virtually, quarterly, all of our trainings. And then we also do private trainings. So we just did a private training of the RTOC for a very well-known red team. There's 20 folks broken across 2 different training sessions. And that was a completely customized version of that RTOC course because they wanted certain things redacted from the course and certain things added to it. So they used like a certain cloud for all of the red team infrastructure. So we added more content for that certain cloud environment. So like, we went very granular in deep detail using certain CDNs. So there's certain things that we can do around that as well.
Who's taking the training? Is this in-house teams?
I mean, it's really everybody that wants to get better at offensive security. And then if someone wants to learn at their own pace, we have the on-demand training. So they can go to our website. We have a training subdomain, training.whiteknightlabs.com, and they can download the ODPC, all the videos, all the code. They get the lab environment. They basically run a Terraform script. It spins up their lab environment. They have a bunch of boxes that we use Guacamole for the front end, and they can do all their EDR bypasses. There is a certification exam for the ODPC. It's extremely challenging because our students have to bypass like very well configured top tier EDR products. So that's a low pass rate. We wanted to kind of break the industry in that if you pass the ODPC, you can write loaders, like guaranteed. Like
I say, if you could pass the ODPC, you can come work for my company.
Yeah,
that's kind of the vision. I'm the one who built that exam. I was like, you know what? I want an exam so hard and so challenging that people just talk about. I was like, dude, I'm not going to try it. That's how hard it is. I love the idea.
You keep the good ones, huh?
That's right.
Yeah.
Very good.
We typically do interview people that pass the ODPC.
Yep. So and people's like, oh man, I gave up halfway through. I can't believe how hard this is. I'm like, dude. And here's the funny thing. I built that exam around real life boxes that I bypassed in the last year and a half. It's the same format, the same things that my team bypasses. So I expect the same thing from these other students. If these students really want to like call themselves, defense development practitioner certification or certified, like they got to be able to pass the legit like real life stuff. Like we can't water this stuff down for these guys. It's not going to teach them anything. We got to give them the real live legit stuff. They're like, man, these boxes are more configured than my company. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
The difference between training to get a job and training to actually do the work.
That's right. Better yourself.
I think it's different between theory and practice, and that's kind of like Greg, your story, like, here's the problem, go ahead and solve that, right? Like, there's no manual.
Drop it in, go for it.
Yeah. Well, the thing guys with trainings is, and Greg made a good point, we've been in the industry for a long time, and there's people that are always going to be in the industry. People are starting, right? So, there's a ton of saturated, certifications out there, and there's certifications that have gotten worse over the years. I always bring this analogy up, and here's the thing. I love offensive security or OffSec guys. They are one of my most favorite training platforms out there. They made my career. I got the OSCP, the OSCE. I've taken all the training courses. I've taken them all. I love offensive security, but they don't give enough hypercurrent updates. If someone takes the OSCP today, it's not enough anymore to be a junior pen tester. It's just not enough, and that's not good in my eyes, right? So we're developing a certification called the ELPT, which will take them from building Cal Linux, programming, internal pen testing, writing a report, capturing, getting domain admin, and going above and getting, confidential data and showing that in a report. That is a junior pen tester. That is what we're going to help build this community and get them prepped for something for a pen test position. You're not having to go pay $3,000 for a cert, attempt it 3 times, and you still don't get the full 100% commitment to a position. I want to give them a certification that gets them somewhere in their spot. So I'm very passionate about giving back to the community because the community gave back to me, right? I started out, we all learned from everybody's blog posts, Fuzzy Security, for example, one of my favorites. I learned, buffer flows and shell coding and just real assembly all the time and bypasses. And I wouldn't be here today without those blogs. That's truth, right?
Yep.
So,
well, speaking of community and giving back, I know you guys wanted to make some of this training available at a special rate, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
So,
yep.
So
we have a
the big question
code.
is how do folks get in touch with John and Greg And I think you mentioned training.whiteknightlabs.
Yep, that's the subdomain. Hey, John, your camera went out. There you go, bud.
Yeah. I had to shut my window. My daughters were being kind of loud for a
Okay.
second.
Yeah, no worries, man. Yeah,
It's Good Friday. No one has school.
Right. Yeah. So there's the training.whiteknightlabs.com where you can go buy the on-demand versions of the Azure course, the ODPC, then the RTOC. And then outside of the ELPT, we have a couple of courses coming to market very shortly. The ASC PC, which is like 90% done. That's good. That'll be taught at NorthSec for the first time. That's like the worldwide release, if you will.
Nice.
And then also Chirag is working on a GCP course, and then Ronak is working on another course. We don't have a name for it yet. It's all about attacking web applications. We essentially give the students code. They have to find bugs in the code and then do the dynamic testing and exploit the bugs. So it's going to be similar to the OSWE, except on steroids, and there'll be a lot more languages that are covered than the OSWE. The OSWE, if you guys don't know, is Offensive Security's web application expert course.
And then, Greg, you should talk about Dojo as well while you're here, man.
Yep. So we just did a podcast with the Core Stack folks. They'll be released on the Core Stack LMS platform. Yep. So that'll be devdojo.whiteknightlabs.com. It's being released April 30th. Students can pay $50 and buy the bundle. They can learn Golang programming basics for Golang, but then also how to write malware for the Windows operating system in Golang. So there's a lot of platforms out there that teach one or the other. They either teach programming or they teach malware development. We wanted to do both. And what really sets us apart is that we actually have a VM that's baked into the LMS, into Core Stack, so they can do all their coding and compile their code live without even needing a VM or going anywhere else. It's like right there next to it where the code is. So really cool stuff. We also have C# as well, and C and assembly.
Yep. Very cool. So our code, so we're going to offer 30% off for all of our on-demand live trainings, and that coupon code is ITSP30.
Look at that.
So, yep.
Is that live right now? Was that going live?
That's live. That's live right now.
This is getting released next week, right?
So
it's getting released.
We'll have that. People don't need to write it down. We'll have it in the notes for this podcast, of course,
we'll
on your page.
To the training as well.
So your dedicated page on ITSP Magazine. And you guys, this was great. I mean, a full 45 minutes of learning.
Passion.
Yeah, the passion
and the drive.
It's amazing.
And the other thing that really catches me is the attention to detail and the breadth and depth of what you're looking after. Yeah. And knowing where your position stops and a strong partner's begins. I think when that gets a little squishy, that becomes problematic for organizations as well. So I think having deep, broad, and then also clear guidance on how and where things can go is super powerful. So.
Yeah,
well,
I'm always aware. I'm always afraid of the Acme company, the company that can make everything. Yeah, and then you got problem. Look at the coyote there.
Exactly. Well, John, Greg's fantastic first chat. We have many more with you coming up. We'll dig into some of these things a little deeper. Look at some use cases and case studies, and maybe some partner stories. Who knows what will come from this? We'll definitely.
We have good war stories. We have a really good war story for you guys. Yeah, war stories.
War stories coming up then, and we'll definitely see you in the desert at DEF CON.
DEF CON, okay.
So, I know you have some trainings going there. You mentioned
we do.
Hopefully people will sign up for those too and partake. And yeah, really good to meet you both. Really good to have a chat with you, and everybody listening, watching. Thanks for joining us and for connecting with the team and looking at their services and looking at the training. And we'll see you all in the next brand story here on ITSP Magazine.
Thanks for having us, Sean and Marco.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
This is a special announcement. We are heading to RSA conference in San Francisco for our 11th years of coverage, April 28, May 1st.
And as always, we're bringing you keynotes, conversations with organizers, speakers, industry leaders, plus the latest insights from the world of cybersecurity.
And we'll reconnect with old friends, meet new ones, and of course, we want you and your company to join us.
We have a few spots left for full sponsorship and our on-location briefings. You can book yours now at itspmagazine.com/RSAC.
we're going.
And you're coming with us.